Hello, everybody. This is State Senator Ed Kennedy, and I'd like to welcome you all to another edition of the Beacon Hill Buzz. And with me today, I'm very happy to have the Massachusetts State Treasurer, Deb Goldberg, as my guest. Madam Treasurer, welcome to the Beacon Hill Buzz.
It is so nice to see you, although virtually. I'd much rather we were sitting together in person.
Well, I wish we were doing that as well. It's the past few episodes of this show we've had to do by Zoom, but it's good to have Zoom too.
Well, thank God for Zoom. I don't know what we would have been doing for the last year and a half.
That's right. So for those who are watching who do not know what the state treasurer does, can you explain your role in government?
I think that's it's very, very interesting. I have been an officer and the president of the National Association of State Treasurers, and I'm also the co-chair of the National Institute of Public Finance for the state treasurers. And what's so funny is we say you've met one treasurer, you've met one treasurer, because every single office in the country has different responsibilities. Some are in common, such as debt management and cash management. But the Massachusetts State Treasurer constitutionally has more responsibilities than any other treasurer in the country. We do traditional things such as cash management and debt management. We have unclaimed property, but we have the State Retirement Board and the pension fund. But we also have deferred compensation. We have the core plan for small nonprofits, a retirement savings plan. We have the Office of Economic Empowerment. We have the Massachusetts State Lottery. We have the Alcoholics Beverages Control Commission, and we have the Massachusetts School Building Authority, Veterans Benefits, and I could go on, believe it or not.
Wow. That's quite a bit, and it's a lot more than I realized before I became a state senator. It was then that I realized just how much that you had. Although years ago, when I was the mayor of the city of Lowell, I did appear before the MSBA a couple of times.
Yes, you did.
The city of Lowell is looking to, or is in the process now of building a new high school, which is only possible because of the MSBA, really.
Well, it's really a partnership, as you know, Senator, and it's a really ideal situation. In fact, Seth Magaziner, who was treasurer of Rhode Island, who is now running for governor of Rhode Island because they have term limits. We don't, so that's the good news. But he and his people met with us in order to look at how do you set up an agency like the Massachusetts School Building Authority. And it's a true partnership. Of course, as I tell you and your colleagues, we would love to have access to more money because there's more need throughout the entire state. And so we are limited by the amount of money that we can leverage to raise for bonding. And for me, it's a heartbreak every time we can't take every school that needs it into our partnership.
And could you tell me about your bill to require financial literacy in schools? What are schools currently offering in terms of financial education?
So the schools are not generally offering financial education. There are schools that have programs. And my team did a survey of the schools of Massachusetts, and not surprising, they found that underserved communities had less resources to be able to actually deliver any kind of even optional financial education and financial training. And the schools that did present it, it was all across the board. It was very, very different no matter what you looked at. And includes the need for, in order to train teachers who don't necessarily feel comfortable teaching financial education. We did a task force when I was first elected. I actually ran on wanting to make sure that we were able to get everyone in Massachusetts the financial tools that they needed in order to literally survive. And that's how I refer to it. I often like to say that I've never needed to know what's the difference in the range from Boston to Philadelphia versus Boston to Scranton. But a lot of people need to know that if their house loses value, how's that going to impact their mortgage payments? And I think that's a really, really good example that we don't teach kids, we don't even teach adults what they need to know. So having looked across the country and seeing many other states actually requiring financial education in the schools, and having gone through my task force in 2014 that felt the best access to people is beginning early and beginning in the schools, we filed a bill to try to require that in the schools. And in particular, since COVID, people are now confronted with more and more financial challenges. And we've provided online training sessions during COVID specifically to deal with COVID economic challenges. But we really think that it's very, very necessary.
And so what do you envision the financial literacy curriculum looking like? And what age group are you targeting?
So can I tell you, there are different ways that you can start preschool all the way through high school with different levels of sophistication. I've gone to preschool groups, I've gone to elementary schools and read stories that teach basic financial understanding. You gear it towards the age group, and it is being done. Massachusetts is only one of 12 states and the District of Columbia that has no state level requirement that schools teach or offer personal financial literacy content. And in fact, I think I'm sure you know about my baby steps savings plan, which we kicked off in January 2020, which seeds an account for every baby born or adopted in Massachusetts towards either vocational and technical training, community college, or college. And what we do is we wrap financial education around the kids and their families. So that's different than many other programs like this throughout the country. And what we're trying to do is it gives us access to the families and gives us an opportunity to do that kind of training. But we're starting from scratch, whereas there are plenty of 15-year-olds or 20-year-olds who need to know these things. I mean, kids grow up today thinking that cash pops out of the side of the building, that you take a plastic card, you put it in a slot, and voila, there's cash. So I'm serious.
I know. I can remember when I was mayor being with you at the stock closer school. I don't know if you remember this, but you had started a pilot program for kids and that was a middle school, I believe, and just having them open up a bank account so that they could save for college and how that would accumulate for them. And at the stock closer school, there were a lot of kids whose families maybe wouldn't have had the wherewithal to save like that. And I thought that was a great program at that time. I
remember Nikki Songus was there with us too.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
And here's the thing that data shows throughout the country. Kids can save, or families can save, as little as $500. And the kids are more likely to attain that education that they need that leads to a job that you can sustain yourself with in Massachusetts, and less likely to assume crippling debt. Because the other thing we want to teach is how you budget and plan. And debt is what is crushing so many people. And that's the other thing that we're trying to avoid. I'm going to share a story about a young woman in Haverhill. She was doing very well, Haverhill High School, in school. And so her parents said, just apply to any school you want and we'll take out the loans. She took a optional financial education program. And after she did that, she said, no, I don't want to be in debt. So she made some very good choices for herself, but that's too haphazard. We need to wrap our hands around helping people attain financial stability, which then provides opportunities for them. And it's good for them, and it's good for our economy, and it's good. So it's a win-win for everybody.
As treasurer, you oversee the Alcoholic Beverages Control Commission, which licenses bars and restaurants throughout the Commonwealth. Can you tell me about your enforcement efforts and your efforts to support these businesses during COVID?
So this was one of our biggest challenges, because I'm a former business person, former retailer. In fact, years ago, we even had in my family some liquor licenses. And so I am very pro-business. And I recognize quickly that the restaurants in particular, but that impacts communities, you know, restaurants and liquor businesses are key components of healthy downtown areas and healthy communities, which is important for revenues, and the revenues get spent on the people who live there. And so also, having been a business person and recognizing that we needed to balance public safety and balance the needs of the local businesses. So we worked with the legislature, you in the Senate and with the House, on finding some ways to give relief, financial relief, by allowing extended payments from the restaurants and the local businesses, by if they were to close during, like last winter, during the height of the pandemic, that they wouldn't need to renew their insurance that's required on behalf of the having a license. But as soon as they were going to reopen again, then repay for the insurance. That actually came about from an owner of a restaurant in Lowell who spoke to me about it and enlightened me. He said, I'm closed. I have no business, but I don't want to give up my license, but I can't really afford the insurance right now. And we worked with the legislature to get a waiver until people opened again. But at the same time, public safety is a huge concern. And our folks were on the front lines of the COVID enforcement team, just making sure people were masked, people were social distancing, that they were there to eat meals while they drank their alcohol. And, you know, there were those who felt that that was not making them very happy. But at the same time, I have a policy: if I've saved one life, I've saved a life. And so that was our goal, to balance, try to balance everything through the height of the pandemic.
Okay, and does the ABCC anticipate that the COVID era changes in policy regarding alcoholic beverages will become permanent in the post-pandemic world?
Are you referring to outdoor service?
Yes.
So I only eat outdoors. I haven't gone indoors to eat anywhere, and I don't plan to do so for a long time. So months ago, I brought it up to the governor and I said, you know what, we really need to do something. This has been a godsend to the restaurants that have done it. They've had to invest money. Many of them have built structures, and so that they could serve it was snowing or raining. They purchased these heating lamps. And I said, and honestly, it's really done a lot for many of the communities, and the communities regulate that, but we also want to work with them to try to maintain the outdoor eating. Now, I know I personally am very much hoping that that occurs, and in talks with the ABCC lately and the governor's office, it appears that we would be able to, in working in concert with the House and the Senate, ensure that that this can move forward as something that restaurants and can continue to do.
You know, I'm totally with you about eating outside. I only will eat outside, and I think that we're in a season now where those heating elements are very, very important if that's going to continue probably until the snow comes. But
so no, during the snow too, I've been thinking, I know this sounds a little maybe crazy. I've been thinking about getting a table for 4 people and a heating lamp for my teeny weeny deck outside of my kitchen so that I can invite friends over. We can wear snowsuits.
right, right.
It can be like those igloo parties.
That might work. You let me know how that works out for you. Maybe I'll try that.
Although I will warn you, it's hard to find those heating lamps. You have to get on a wait list.
Yes, I think in Lowell, what they did was the city bought heating lamps for eating establishments and then lent them to them so that they could have them. And that's worked out very, very well, I think. But we'll see how that goes going forward. I do think that eating outside has changed dining somewhat. It's a lot of times, if the weather's good, it's a lot more pleasant. And a couple of times I had dinner down at the North End, which was all outside. All of their sidewalks and parking spaces were all dedicated to.
Yeah, I think that long term there's going to have to be some pullback in the North End because it was tough enough to get down the streets there before this. And so I know that there's conversations about how they're going to balance all those interests in the North End.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes.
Yes.
As a member of the Joint Committee on Consumer Protection and Professional Licensure, I would like to support the effort of the Lottery Commission to regulate the so-called couriers, which was a new issue for me. I didn't realize that existed, but can you provide an overview of the current status of that situation and maybe explain what the couriers do and how they should be regulated in your view?
So let me tell you, that became a discussion at the Lottery Commission meeting. But how it works is this service is similar to courier services in other industries like Peapod, Uber Eats, Toast. And they have been growing at a rapid rate. And courier services have emerged across the country in various business models. So the executive director, Mike Sweeney, recently made the commission aware of lottery courier services in Massachusetts and the desire to create a regulatory structure for it, just so that it isn't random. So what a customer does is they download the Lottery Courier app and they can place an order. The courier, just like Uber Eats, will then go purchase a ticket from a retail location and deliver an electronic version of the ticket via the app. It's typically for draw games like Powerball and Mega Millions, not scratch tickets. And who would want to take the pleasure of scratching the scratch ticket away from a customer?
Right.
I mean, for a long time, we have voided tickets so that we can show them to members of the Lottery Commission, what they look like with each new issue. And I would sit there scratching the tickets just to see if I could win on a voided ticket. But I started making too much of a mess on the table. If a customer wins under $600, the winnings are placed into an account, and then they can use these accounts to purchase more tickets, or they can cash out. And if they win more than 600, the courier will deliver the physical ticket to the customer so that they can cash it at a lottery location. And yes, the couriers charge customers a fee for this service. So we're looking at this, and it's important that regulations are implemented to protect consumers, protect retailers, and protect our brand, our tickets. So we're researching ways in which other states are doing it. And we need to look at age restrictions and geolocation, background checks on owners and operators, cybersecurity, insurance, restrictions on advertising, and use of credit cards, because we are not a credit card operation. And so that's something, and to be candid, it's something that I have never approved of. I don't think people should do this kind of entertainment on credit. and instituting responsible gambling practices. So we're talking to our retail partners to make sure that their interests are taken into account. And we expect to have further discussions at the commission level as we move forward. But it's definitely something to consider because candidly, I've got to be honest, Instacart brings me my groceries now.
Okay. You also serve as the chair of the Pension Reserves Investment Management Board. Can you elaborate on your responsibilities in this role?
So first of all, I am very proud of the Pension Reserves Investment Management Board, which is better known as PRIM. It's less of a mouthful. And they have since the downturn after the subprime mortgage crisis, the kind of research that they have done and the way in which they've balanced and managed with a long-term strategy have resulted in tremendous gains. To give you an idea that when I arrived, the pension fund had $59 billion in it, and it now has $96 billion in it. We are closing the funding gap, and we are well on our way to be fully funded not for several years, but we are on our way. In other words, the way we like to describe it is we're pouring water into the bucket a lot faster than water's coming out the bottom. And that means meeting the needs of our retirees. And the strategies are really built in order to not react to market conditions as they go up and down. It's a long-term strategy, and I'm going to knock wood because I never not want to, but it's been a successful strategy. And the professionals that work there are incredibly talented. We're very fortunate to have them because candidly, each and every one of them could get a job in the private sector and be compensated at a much higher level, but they're truly dedicated to public service.
And you also oversee the issuance of state debt. Can you explain municipal bonds as an investment and as a revenue source for the Commonwealth?
So we have a very extensive bond structure in Massachusetts, and we are highly desirable. We are seen as a well-managed state financially. We have AA plus or AA plus bonds, and we are seen to have managed ourselves through COVID far better than many states throughout the country. We never had a financial liquidity problem. We did not need to avail ourselves of what is called a facility down at the US Treasury in order to supplement cash flow. In fact, it made us so nimble that we were able to go out on our own and purchase PPE and lung machines more rapidly than a lot of other states because the federal government wasn't doing this in bulk and then distributing it properly to the states. But in terms of our debt management, again, since I've been here, we have annually saved hundreds of millions of dollars for the taxpayer by taking advantage of what we call advance refunding, meaning taking debt that may be paid at a higher rate to rolling it in and reissuing debt at lower rates. We also, because our bonds are so desirable, there are more buyers than sellers, and that's easy to understand for anybody. When there are more buyers than sellers, you do better. And that's exactly what we've been able to do. And then with our Clean Water Trust, we are AAA bonded, and we have done green bonds for years, and that's a very desirable product. The Clean Water Trust is what funds the rebuilding of our water infrastructure in every community and we have this partnership again, where we issue for communities that need it, 0% loans up to a couple of percentage loans. And again, it's a wonderful partnership. And then in the last couple of years, we've had our drinking water program, where we provided, along with EPA, the resources and Mass DEP to test all of the drinking fountains throughout the state in the schools. And then a program called the SWIG program, where we supply schools with bottled water stations, so that if they do find any lead or copper, they can shut those down and we can provide the opportunities for the kids to have, and obviously the teachers and staff, clean water in the schools.
Thank you. My last question, I think, is what can you tell us about the markets?
Ha! Do I have a crystal ball? So you know what? That is a perfect question that supports our strategy at the pension fund. We intentionally do not follow the day-to-day of the market. We're not speculators, we're long-term investors. And I think a perfect opportunity would be for me to explain to you, we were an initial investor in this teeny weeny unknown company called Moderna.
Okay.
Need I say more? But
Nope.
to offset that kind of, not in a big position, and to offset that kind of investment, we have more traditional investments. But what we do is we're long-term. Well, clearly the Moderna investment paid off long-term, big time.
Right. And Madam Treasurer, I think you've done a great job in explaining a lot of complex issues in a pretty easy way. I think the Commonwealth is very lucky to have you as the state treasurer. You know, you've brought a lot of innovation to the job, and I'm very happy to have you as my guest today. Thank you very much for coming on.
Well, thank you for having me. And you know that I have a long history. A lot of your people watching your show don't realize how far back my family and I go in Lowell. But what I can tell you is that not only did my dad open the Stop and Shop in Lowell, but he gave his entire speech in Greek on Greek Independence Day. So that'll tell you how far back I go in the city of Lowell.
Okay, well, thanks again to everybody. This is State Senator Ed Kennedy, and I want to welcome you to watching this issue of the Beacon Hill Buzz. And until next time, we'll see you then, and have a good day. Thank you again.
Bye.
Bye-bye.